Welcome back to the Perimenopause Reset. I'm Miriam, functional nutritionist and gut hormone specialist. The eating window, the 12-hour, the 14-hour, the intermittent fast, gets marketed as a weight loss tool. It isn't. Not for women in perimenopause. The mechanism that actually makes it work has nothing to do with calories and everything to do with your liver's overnight hormone clearance, your adrenal rhythm, and a circadian clock that estrogen used to protect. Today's episode is about that mechanism and about why getting the frame wrong, treating this as a diet instead of a biological timing tool, is exactly why it keeps backfiring for so many women who are doing everything they were told to do. When you understand the eating window correctly, it stops requiring willpower. It becomes something your body is actually asking for once it knows what the ask is really about. That's what we're covering today. So let's get into it. Let me start with the version of this you probably already tried. You read something, an article, a podcast, a practitioner's Instagram that said, stop eating at 7 p.m. Don't eat again until 7 a.m. Give your body a 12-hour window. Or maybe it was 14 hours, or maybe 16. Maybe you went further and tried a full intermittent fasting protocol. And one of two things happened. Either it worked for a few weeks and then stopped working, your weight loss stalled, your energy tanked, and you felt worse than you did before. Or it never worked at all, and you felt hungry, wired, and somehow more symptomatic than when you started. Both of these outcomes make complete sense, and neither of them means the eating window concept is wrong. They mean the frame was wrong. Here's the frame that was missing. Your body runs on two overlapping clocks. The first is your circadian clock, the 24-hour biological rhythm driven by light, darkness, temperature, and feeding patterns. Every cell in your body has a circadian biology. Your liver, your adrenal glands, your gut, your pancreas, they all run on a predictable schedule tied to the light-dark cycle. The second is your hormonal clock, the daily arc of cortisol, insulin, estrogen, progesterone, and thyroid hormone that creates the rhythm your metabolism needs to function. In perimenopause, both of these clocks become more sensitive to disruption. Estrogen, which plays a role in a circadian regulation, is fluctuating. Cortisol buffering is reduced. The tolerance for timing errors that your body had in your 30s is narrower now. What the eating window actually does, when it's right for your biology, is align your feeding schedule with your circadian clock. It tells your liver when to work and when to rest. It tells your adrenal glands when food is coming and when to stop producing cortisol to compensate. It gives your gut the overnight window it needs to clean house. That's the mechanism. Not fat burning, not calorie restriction, circadian alignment. And here's the critical implication. If your eating window is too long or positioned at the wrong time of day, it doesn't just fail to help. It actually disrupts the circadian rhythm it was supposed to support. A 10 p.m. snack tells your liver, stay active. Your adrenals, stay on. your pancreas keep processing. Every organ that was supposed to start its overnight repair cycle is still working. And the downstream effects of that, the poor sleep, the morning cortisol that doesn't rise cleanly, the fatigue that starts before the day does, these are not a sign that the eating window doesn't work for you. They are a sign that your window is positioned in a way that works against your clock. This is why women extend their fasting window further and feel worse. The problem wasn't that the window was too short. The problem was the timing. I want to walk you through what's actually happening in your body during an appropriate overnight window. Because when you understand this, the timing stops feeling like restriction and starts feeling like something your body is genuinely asking for. Let's start with your liver. Your liver is one of the most metabolically active organs in your body, and it runs on a strict circadian schedule. During the day, the liver is in processing mode, handling nutrients from meals, managing blood glucose, filtering toxins, producing bile for digestion. During the overnight window, when food stops arriving, the liver shifts into repair and recycling mode. It processes metabolic waste. It runs a cellular cleanup cycle called autophagy. It manages estrogen metabolism and clearance, which in perimenopause is particularly significant because uncleared estrogen metabolites contribute to estrogen-dominant symptoms: bloating, breast tenderness, mood instability, weight that accumulates around the hips and thighs. When you eat late, when food is still arriving at 9, 10, 11 p.m., your liver cannot make this shift. It stays in processing mode. The cleanup doesn't happen. The estrogen metabolites don't clear efficiently, and you wake up the next morning with a liver that never got to rest. This is one of the most underappreciated mechanisms behind why many women in perimenopause feel worse in the morning than they do at any other point in the day. It's not just cortisol. It's a liver that ran the night shift and was never told it could stop. Now, let's talk about your adrenal glands. Your cortisol follows a predictable daily arc called the cortisol awakening response that is entirely dependent on your body knowing when nighttime ends and daytime begins. That arc is calibrated by your circadian clock, and your circadian clock takes its cues from light, temperature, and feeding patterns. When you eat late at night, you send a daytime signal to a body that should be moving toward nighttime. You delay the melatonin rise, you suppress the cortisol clearance that should be happening, and you shift the entire next morning's cortisol arc, which means the clean, productive morning cortisol rise that should be energizing you and anchoring your metabolism is either blunted or dysregulated. This is why the eating window for women in perimenopause is not primarily about what happens during the window. It's about what happens outside of it. The overnight hours are when your hormonal reset occurs. The window protects that reset. And then there's your gut. Your gut has its own circadian clock called the migrating motor complex, MMC for short, that runs a cleaning sweep through your small intestine approximately every 90 minutes when you're in a fasted state. This sweep clears bacteria, undigested particles, and cellular debris. It's one of your gut's primary defenses against bacterial overgrowth and permeability. This sweep only runs between meals and overnight. It requires a fasted state to activate. When eating continues late into the evening, the sweep is interrupted. The cleaning doesn't happen. And over time, this contributes to the gut symptoms: bloating, irregularity, sensitivity, that many women in perimenopause assume are just hormonal gut issues. They are hormonal gut issues, but the timing of meals is part of the mechanism. Here's where I want to get specific, because the eating window conversation in perimenopause gets oversimplified down to a single recommendation: close your window at 7 p.m. Don't eat past 6. Fast for 12 hours. And what gets missed entirely is that the optimal window and the specific disruptions that happen when it's wrong look different depending on your gut hormone pattern. Now, let me walk through each of the 4 patterns. If you are running a cortisol wire pattern, the HPA axis is overactivated. Cortisol is running high, you're wired at night and crashing during the day. Your eating window has a specific vulnerability at the morning end. Cortisol wired women often skip or delay breakfast because they're not hungry in the morning. The elevated cortisol has suppressed appetite and mobilized blood glucose, so the hunger signal doesn't arrive until 10 a.m., 11 a.m., or even later. This feels like your body's natural rhythm. It is not. It's cortisol substituting for food. The problem is that when breakfast is delayed, cortisol has to keep working to maintain blood glucose, which extends the cortisol elevation into the mid-morning window when it should already be descending. The cortisol arc never gets to complete its natural downslope, and the wire-tired cycle that defines this pattern compounds. For cortisol-wired women, the most important end of the eating window is the opening, not the close. For women with an estrogen-stuck pattern where estrogen dominant symptoms are primary, the liver is sluggish in its hormone clearance, and gut motility is compromised. The evening close is the critical variable. Estrogen metabolism happens primarily in the liver during the overnight fasting window. When the window closes late, the liver's clearance cycle is compressed or skipped entirely. Estrogen metabolites accumulate. The symptoms of estrogen dominance, the bloating, the mood instability, the weight that won't shift, have a direct relationship to how consistently the evening close is honored. For estrogen-stuck women, closing the eating window before 7 p.m. is not a diet rule. It's a liver clearance protocol. Women with an insulin-inflamed pattern where blood sugar dysregulation is primary, insulin sensitivity is compromised, and inflammatory symptoms are present, have a specific vulnerability to extended fasting windows. This is the pattern most likely to be told, extend your fast to 16 hours and your insulin sensitivity will improve. And for some women, in some contexts, that's true. But for many insulin-inflamed women in perimenopause, a 16-hour fast elevates cortisol, which elevates blood glucose, which triggers an insulin response before any food has even arrived. The fast actually makes the problem it was designed to solve. Let me say that again. The fast makes the problem it was designed to solve. For insulin-inflamed women, the stability of the eating window, its consistency, and what anchors it at each end matters more than its length. For women with a T3 downregulated pattern where thyroid conversion is compromised, metabolism is sluggish, and cold intolerance and fatigue are primary, aggressive fasting windows are often the single most counterproductive intervention. Thyroid hormone conversion is energy dependent. Aggressive or prolonged fasting windows, especially when total food intake decreases alongside them, can be one of the inputs that compounds thyroid conversion over time. This is not a single fast effect. It's the accumulated signal of a chronically narrow or nutrient sparse window. For T3 downregulated women, that pattern is particularly worth watching. For T3 downregulated women, a 12-hour window that is well anchored and well nourished will almost always outperform a 16-hour window that is nutrient sparse. 4 patterns, 4 different vulnerabilities, 1 eating window recommendation, regardless of which pattern you're running, will help some women and actively worsen others. I want to leave you with something concrete, not a protocol, but a lens shift that changes how you approach your eating schedule this week. Stop asking, how long is my fasting window? Start asking, what am I telling my circadian clock with the timing of my first and last meal? Those are different questions. The first is a diet question. It's about duration, about hours, about caloric restriction framed as a window. The second is a biology question. It's about what signal your body is receiving, what your liver is being asked to do, and whether your adrenal rhythm has a consistent anchor to organize around. Here's the simplest version of what circadian aligned eating looks like, not as a rule, but as a direction. Your first meal should arrive within an hour or 2 of waking, not because breakfast is a moral obligation, but because it closes the overnight cortisol window and tells your metabolism that the day has started. That signal is particularly important for women in perimenopause whose cortisol regulation is already less stable. Your last meal should close a few hours before bed, not because eating at night is inherently wrong, but because your liver, your gut, and your adrenal glands need an uninterrupted window to do the overnight work that produces the hormonal reset your body needs by morning. The window between those 2 anchors, how long it is, what's in it, how it's structured, matters. But it matters less than the consistency of the anchors themselves. Your circadian clock does not respond to intention. It responds to pattern. A consistent eating schedule, even an imperfect one, signals more safety to your hormonal system than a perfect protocol that runs 3 days and collapses. One experiment this week. Notice when your first and last meals actually land, not when you intend them to, but when they happen. Write it down for 5 days. Don't change anything yet. Just look at the pattern. That observation alone will tell you more about your circadian alignment than any article about fasting windows ever could. If today's episode raised the question of which pattern is yours, which end of the eating window matters most for your specific biology, which window length serves you versus works against you, the free gut hormone archetype quiz is where that answer lives. It takes about 5 minutes, okay? And it is listed below in the show notes and description. Here's what I want you to take from today's episode. The eating window is not a diet. It's a circadian tool. Its value is not in how many hours you fast. It's in what signal your timing sends to your hormonal clock, your liver, your adrenals, and your gut. And in perimenopause and menopause, that signal has more downstream consequences than at any other stage of your hormonal life. Getting this right isn't about adding more discipline to your day. It's about giving your body a more predictable schedule so it can do the overnight repair work it's been asking to do. If today's episode raised the question of which pattern is yours, which end of the window matters most for your specific biology, which fasting length serves you versus works against you, again, my free gut hormone pattern quiz is where that answer lives, okay? And I will tell you that the answers you receive from the quiz changes every conversation that you and I will have afterwards. Now, if you are listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, a review takes about 30 seconds and it gets this information in front of more women who need it. I read every one, okay? Now, next week on the Perimenopause Reset, we're moving into the exercise conversation, specifically why the workout that worked brilliantly in your 30s may be the exact thing making your symptoms worse now. Now, if you've ever wondered why more effort is producing less results, then that episode, I promise you that episode is for you. I'm Miriam Fajay. This is the Perimenopause Reset. Take care of yourselves, and I'll be talking with you again next week.